If your days are deeply chaotic with no sense of direction, then productivity strategies like monk mode, a structured morning routine, and a deep work block will immeasurably transform your life. But will all of this be enough to make you more successful than 99% of people? Definitely not, because 99% of people are already doing these things. Now, I'm not denying that focused, intelligently structured persistence isn't required to achieve greatness. I'm just saying the quiet part out loud. If everybody's doing it, then it's no longer a competitive edge. It's just the new baseline. So if becoming the embodiment of discipline isn't the solution, then what is? Well, I'd wager that even if people actually achieve what they're striving for, they won't actually be successful deep down. This is because 99% of people define success in extrinsic realms, such as money accumulation, popularity, and perpetual achievement, rather than peeking behind the veil. In other words, they do not pursue living authentically to their values, which are about as core to who you are as you can get. In fact, living authentically to your values has been linked to a ton of life benefits, from less stress to more happiness. And I'd argue that that results in more success than all of the extrinsic realms combined. In fact, if your values do not align with the success that you are striving for, then cognitive dissonance will take root, which is the uncomfortable unease that occurs when your behaviors are not matching your values. And if you don't believe me, just think of every time that you've heard the term money can't buy happiness. This occurs when somebody is experiencing cognitive dissonance. They've achieved what they thought success was, yet they aren't satisfied because their lived experience doesn't match the undercurrent of their heart. So if you want to surpass 99% of people, don't even try to out-hustle them. Just out-align them. Without further ado, let's get into the practical steps. Step 1. Surface your real values. Grab a pen and paper. No, seriously, write it out. Simply thinking about this in your head is how you've been lying to yourself for years. We'll start with some questions that are designed to strip away the cultural pressure, family expectations, and ego protection. While they may seem silly on the surface, they do serve an immensely important role, revealing what you'd value beneath all of the pressures of conformity. Imagine you were stranded on a desert island all alone, but the island is full of everything you could need or want. Total abundance. Not only are your basic needs covered, but you also have access to anything you could want to explore. Your hobbies and interests, dreams and desires. What would you spend your time doing? Would you watch a bunch of movies? Read a bunch of books? Study something new? List the top 3 things you would spend the most time doing. Your answers to this question reveals what you value beneath all of the social pressures of trying to fit in and being liked. Question 2. Picture yourself at the end of a long and fulfilling life. A loved one stands to deliver your eulogy. What do you hope they'll say about you? Think of 3 words or phrases you'd want to hear, such as always honest, supportive, or superbly curious. Your answer to this one anchors your values to your character and contribution, who you want to be for others across the decades. Question 3. What reliably frustrates or angers you? List 3 recurring situations that make you think, that's not okay. Examples include missed commitments, exploitation, or dishonesty. This one reveals your boundaries and non-negotiables, what you'll protect even if it costs you. If you feel inclined to skip out on answering any of these questions, then just realize that each one is equally important. Question 1 is desire, which is important of course, but desire cannot be capitalized upon without staying true to your character and respecting your boundaries. Step 2, translate answers into values. Extract a candidate value from each of your answers. For example, if you wrote composing music, long hikes, and studying psychology and philosophy for question 1, you'd extract creativity, vitality, and curiosity. Do the same for your remaining answers. Keep in mind that there are no wrong responses here. Just go with what your gut says. Oftentimes, if you think too hard on anything, then you are just overcomplicating it. Values, at the end of the day, are a feeling that emerges almost immediately, not some life-changing decision. If you find yourself judging or trying to change your answers, then recognize that for what it is: your ego trying to protect itself. This process is typically uncomfortable, but necessary for true success. Once you have a list of 9 that you feel strongly about, let's cut it down to 4 or 5. Because more than likely there are redundancies popping up, and life works through trade-offs. If everything is important, then nothing is. Here's an example list. 1. Creativity. 2. Vitality. 3. Curiosity. 4. Integrity. 5. Service/compassion. 6. Excellence/craftsmanship. 7. Reliability. 8. Fairness/justice. 9. Autonomy/independence. Combine any clear redundancies. For example, reliability fits naturally inside of integrity because keeping your word is a part of being honest and responsible. So you can merge the two, leaving yourself just with integrity. You get the idea. Cluster and then cut until you are just down to 4 or 5 main values. One common outcome is 1. Autonomy. 2. Excellence. 3. Integrity. 4. Service. 5. Vitality. During this process, notice which values you would sacrifice for others and why. For instance, you may say that health matters to you more than comfort, yet you frequently skip your morning workouts in favor of sleeping in. This process helps you see what really comes first in practice and whether it lines up neatly with the person who you want to become. While doing so, try ranking your 4 to 5 values by importance to you. This illuminates clarity around what matters most to you in life. Because at the end of the day, you can slowly recalibrate your priorities towards the values which you consider the most meaningful. Now, it's important to understand the difference between terminal and instrumental values during this stage. Terminal values are the end goals of your life, whereas instrumental values are the means of achieving those goals, desirable ways of behaving. For example, to achieve the terminal value of self-respect, one may have the instrumental values of honesty and hard work as the means that lead to that self-respect. This is an important distinction to realize because without it, you could spend years defending a behavior which isn't actually helping you realize the life that you want. When you understand that self-respect is the terminal value, for example, then you realize that honesty and hard work are tools rather than commandments. You can start asking questions like, is the way that I'm being honest right now actually building self-respect? Or am I just being harsh because I decided a long time ago that honesty mattered? In other words, the terminal layer is the one that you want to align your goals, habits, and definition of success to. So as you begin designing what success means to you, don't just stick to traits that you admire, such as honesty, courage, discipline, or curiosity, and stop there. Trace them forward and ask, what are these actually in service of? What is the end state that I am chasing? Do this for your list of 4 or 5, tracing as many values to terminal ones as you can. Step 3, take inventory of your life. Now that you've named your terminal values and instrumental values that support them, it's time to get brutally honest and surgical about your life. Take each major goal that you're pursuing right now, from relationships to career paths, and run them through 3 filters. Filter 1, does this goal actually express one of my terminal values? Filter 2, what behaviors am I performing to reach it? Filter 3, do those behaviors actually reflect the instrumental values I said I cared about? If a goal fails any of those 3, that's where cognitive dissonance sneaks in. Let's break down a classic one. The classic case of, I've always wanted to become a doctor. You might have said that since you were 10. Your family might have celebrated it. Your teachers may have affirmed it. It may even feel like the destiny of your life. But if you're experiencing constant friction, like burnout, fatigue, and procrastination, then something in that stack is out of alignment. Here's one way that it happens. You tell people, I want to become a doctor because I want to help people. That sounds noble. On the surface, it maps the terminal values such as service, contribution, and compassion. But when you look closer, maybe none of those are actually on your list. Maybe the real unspoken driver is that of status, significance, or being seen as intelligent and competent. Those are completely different terminal values. And then look one layer deeper and examine what values your actual behavior is expressing. For example, are you studying because you genuinely love learning and want to understand the human body on a deeper level? If so, then the instrumental values showing up is curiosity, excellence, and even mastery. Or are you studying just enough to beat the curve, to prove to people how smart you are? In that case, the instrumental values are competition, image protection, and perfectionism. When you line all of that up, then the gap becomes obvious. Your stated terminal value was, I want to help people, but your actual terminal value might have been closer to, I want to be respected, seen, or admired. And the instrumental values currently showing up in your behavior, overachievement, image management, people pleasing, and perfectionism, reflect that second motive more than the first and can lead to a myriad of negative consequences. The last thing you want in life is to wake up a decade later and realize that you've been living a lie. That is not true success. It's called a midlife crisis. Enact this for each of your goals that matters to you in life in order to illuminate the truth. Are you secretly living with cognitive dissonance on a daily basis? Or are you actually in sync? I'd wager that most of us have some work to do. Step 4, designing your purpose. If you uncovered some dissonance, then don't freak out. There are 2 main ways that you can close the gap. Option 1 is to realign your goals to match your values. This is the cleaner, healthier, and usually faster route. You keep your current values and you adjust the goal so that it no longer fights with them. So going back to our doctor example, let's say that your real terminal value is service, but most of your current behavior is targeted towards status. And realignment may be as simple as getting experience in serving people right now, like volunteering at clinics or even tutoring in biology, so that the day-to-day actually feels like the life that you wanted. You'd also design a bunch of habits around this, such as a weekly service block and committing 1 hour of study to mastery for more than just grades, and regular reflection to make sure that the motive hasn't slid back to ego. If a practical shift like this doesn't actually work in your current life, then maybe drawing up an entirely new goal is more sensible. That could even be easier depending on your circumstances. Option 2, change your values to match the goal. Sometimes you do truly desire the goal, but it just requires values that you don't currently embody. High-level medicine, for example, often requires long hours and delaying instant gratification. If your current top values are freedom, spontaneity, and comfort, then that's going to clash. Changing your values comes down to reordering your priorities and upgrading your identity. You just can't keep every value at the top slot. Something has to move down so that other things can move up. That's the uncomfortable part, because it means admitting for this season of life, being free and doing whatever I want is less important than becoming the kind of person who shows up no matter what. For example, let's say your hierarchy of values right now is 1, comfort, 2, freedom, 3, being liked, 4, service, and 5, excellence. But the goal of becoming a doctor or competing at an elite level actually requires this hierarchy. 1, excellence, 2, service, 3, discipline/reliability. 4, freedom. And 5, comfort. That's not just a tiny tweak, that's a full-on values reshuffling. So how do you do this? Well, you shift your behavior. Start by naming the season. Say to yourself, I'm in a training season right now. Excellence outranks comfort. Making it seasonal makes the sacrifice more tolerable because you're not killing off comfort forever. You're just deprioritizing it for a purpose. Then behave like somebody whose top value is excellence daily, even if it doesn't feel like it. Show up when you don't want to, study when you're tired, and redo work that feels sloppy. Values don't change through wishing. They change through repeated, inconvenient action. Every time you choose excellence over comfort or service over ego, recognize it and write it down. Tell yourself that's what future me does. And let yourself feel proud because emotion is the glue. And without emotion, the new value just isn't gonna stick. After all this, change your environment to match. If you stay around people whose number one value is chill, then what are you gonna wanna do? You're just gonna wanna chill. Spend time around people whose number one value is mastery, and then over time, mastery will begin to feel normal. Values are contagious. Finally, retell your story. Stop saying, I'm just a freedom person, I hate structure, and start saying, I used to pick comfort, but now I'm training for something bigger. Identity follows story, and story follows repetition. Step 5, execute relentlessly. Once you clean up cognitive dissonance, either by realigning your goals to match your values or realigning your values to match your goals, you actually have to live it now. And this is where most people fall off because insight without repetition doesn't actually change a life. These new value-aligned goals need to be acted upon consistently so that they compound over time. Because anything worth building always takes way longer than you actually want it to. Success also requires adaptation. If you just do the same workout the same way over and over, would you expect to get bigger and stronger? No, you need to adapt in order to improve. Same goes with everything in life. Success is like a living and breathing entity. Along your journey, you need to continuously reiterate in order to succeed. Nothing is a linear curve. Everything involves peaks and valleys. Lastly, distraction needs to be minimized or life will feel like a mouse wheel. You'll be burning time with nothing to show for it except for frustration. I know that's a lot to take in, so don't rush to do it. Just sit with it for a while. Reread your values list. Re-evaluate your current goals. Ask where your behavior is lying to you. Then pick one lever and start there. This is the work that actually makes you more successful than 99% of people. And it's not because it's flashy, but because almost nobody does it long enough. Good luck.